Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J Moore Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a very frustrated baker. Welcome to my 98th episode of the Food Enthusiast. All previous shows have been archived on J Moore Living's Facebook page and website, so feel free to dig in, enjoy the previous shows, take them for your walks, your runs, your drives. From Memphis to LA to Arizona, from training in French and Asian cuisine to world barbecue competition wins, today's guest is here to talk barbecue and any other culinary questions you might have. Considered a barbecue historian, let me welcome Chef, Pitmaster, Daly Thompson.
Dara, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. So what's on your grill today?
Actually, brisket today. I'm cooking some briskets. We're doing a launch show the first week in March in Albuquerque for our new company, our new barbecue company and product line. It's at the Albuquerque Fiery Foods and Barbecue Show, March 4th, 5th, and 6th. So I'm cooking lots of pulled pork and lots of brisket, and then doing it in portion sizes for samples and cryovacuuming it, freezing it, and then I'll be taking it to the show in 2 weeks.
Is that all?
Well, that's just today, you know.
That's just today.
Just today.
Daly, there's a common thread with my guests. Food unites people. It is their inspiration, the impetus in their career choice. What was food like for you growing up?
Well, I mean, I'm from Memphis originally. I grew up there in the 60s and 70s. And food was all, and especially, I would say, barbecue in general was always a backdrop or always a part of celebrations, whether it be, a graduation. I mean, weddings, not so much. Nowadays, a lot more weddings are a lot more casual. And even when I left there, God, 30 years ago, people were starting to integrate barbecue into wedding celebrations. But I mean, even, funerals, even. Unfortunately, my mom passed away last February.
I'm sorry.
And we went back to Memphis for the gravesite funeral. It's very small because it was still COVID. But of course, where did we go afterwards? We went to the best barbecue place in Memphis, Central Barbecue, to eat barbecue after the memorial at the gravesite. So it has always been part. I would say I learned a lot more about cooking and about food from my mother's side of the family. Even my great grandmother, who I remember, I was young when she passed away, but she would cook. My great aunt was a very good cook. My grandmother was an excellent cook. In fact, I used to help her make. She would make the best, and I'm not just being partial. The best beef. It wasn't like a stew or a Brunswick stew. It was just basically her beef vegetable soup. But she would, put the marrow bones in there, and she'd cook it for like 2 days, and it would just be like simmered for forever. And her chocolate chip cookies are legendary. We still will not give out the recipe, but and her German chocolate cake. But I was always, as a kid, was curious about cooking. Growing up in the older South, I mean, it's the Mid-South is not quite maybe like Antebellum or like Savannah or certain parts of the Deep South, but there was so much, so many different eclectic tastes that were coming in, because Memphis being on the Mississippi and being in the tri-state area of Mississippi, Arkansas and Tennessee, getting influences from the Mississippi Delta, New Orleans, and then up to St. Louis. So all those combinations kind of came together. And that's why I think Memphis is such a great melting pot of different tastes. It might not be exactly what they eat in New Orleans or in Baton Rouge, but it's, like I have a gumbo. It's called Smoky Mountain Gumbo, which is like a combination of Louisiana and East Tennessee and the Smoky Mountains and Memphis. So, I kind of married all those in the food that I cook.
Yeah. You went to culinary school at Memphis Culinary Academy.
Yes.
And when you left, you were working more, you studied French and Asian cuisines were your area of studies, correct?
Exactly.
They're two very distinct cuisines. Do you adapt any of those techniques from them to barbecue? And if so, what are they?
I think all cuisines, especially learning French technique, because most classical culinary schools will teach you French technique, and nonetheless, I learned French technique in culinary school. Was still in Memphis and worked at a number of restaurants. Worked at the Top Italian restaurant. Was the first real restaurant that I worked in Memphis. And then after a couple of more places, I ended up at a place called Chez Philippe, which is still in the Peabody Hotel in Memphis. And I don't know what their rating is now, but for 25 years, it was the #1 restaurant in Memphis, and studied under Chef Jose Gutierrez, who is a master chef. He's still cooking. He has his own restaurant in Memphis now. And every time I go back to Memphis, I usually stop in and see him. I mean, he's a young 70-year-old, very vibrant, very passionate about.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, very passionate,
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, and that was most of my training in Memphis. I didn't really start loving the Asian cuisines until I moved out to California. I moved to California in 1989. Now, a friend of mine who is a Thai gentleman who went to Memphis State, we befriended each other, and he loved barbecue, and he started putting on this international Thai barbecue festival in Bangkok. In 1988, we went. We didn't win that year, but in 1989 and then 1990, we won grand champion, first place.
Right, I had that in my notes.
In Bangkok, Thailand.
Right.
That's when I really got a passion for Asian cuisine and the intricacies, because I don't know, growing up in the South, there weren't a whole lot of different types of Asian food. It was mostly old school, like Cantonese Chinese, or old school Japanese. Sushi really hadn't hit the market, back then. This was still back in the 80s, but I came out here, and to me, I think Los Angeles is the best Thai food restaurant capital of the United States. I'm very partial. I know San Francisco is excellent as well. Vietnamese, I started working in there. I did work for probably a family in a Vietnamese family in Los Angeles, and helped one of the daughters open up the top Vietnamese restaurant in Los Angeles back 2014. So I really learned a lot about the intricacies, because Vietnamese to me is the hardest to learn, because you're pulling in French, you're pulling in Chinese cookery, and you're pulling in Vietnamese, and lots of herbs and lots of medicinal roots and vegetables. It's very aromatic. Yes.
Vietnamese out of the Asians tends to be more my favorite, because I find the flavors are fresher and cleaner. It's
And
not
it's less fat as well. They don't use
right,
as many oils. Yeah, they
right.
steam a lot.
Yeah, do you feel like some of these techniques that you've learned that you've adapted some way into the barbecue?
I definitely do. Now, I still stay true to my roots as far as cooking low and slow. Smoking over. I generally use a blend of oak, hickory, and apple. A little bit
Woods?
milder and sweeter woods than they use like in Texas. Now in Texas they use a lot more mesquite and pecan, which are harsher, a little harder woods. They have a little bit more of a bite. Uh, Hickory and oak kind of give it the background of the wood. Now, when I was growing up, it was all hickory. I mean, you get pulled pork, and I mean that was what barbecue was pulled pork, chopped pork, and it was only cooked over hickory.
Can
But
I ask a question?
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
What is the difference between Texas, Kansas City, Memphis, and Carolina barbecue?
You're gonna love this, and the Kansas City people always love when I talk about their barbecue. Okay, I think that definitely the three meccas of American barbecue are the Carolinas. Basically, North Carolina, I think, is the lead. South Carolina comes up, but it's a little bit different. Memphis and Texas. Now, Kansas City, and I'm not disrespecting Kansas City at all, but they were kind of late to the game. Kansas City, what they do is they kind of pull from all three of us. They do usually, I'm not going to say all across the board because I know that they have kind of reinvented their style with some of the newer barbecues, but they generally use the harder woods that Texas uses, the mesquite and the pecan, and then they generally put a sweeter sauce on it. Now, for Carolina and for Memphis, that is kind of taboo. I don't like sweet sauces. We don't really use a sweet sauce. Um, our my kind of philosophy is if you know how to barbecue, it doesn't need sauce. Sauce is a condiment. It should be used on the side. I'm not saying that you can't finish it with sauce, but generally, you know, slow smoke, whether it's brisket, whether it's pulled pork, whether it's a dry rub rib, which is definitely a Memphis original. It's a dry rub smoke. You baste it with a marinade, but you don't put a finishing sauce on till the very end, or you like on the dry rub ribs. We don't sauce them. We put it on the side.
Right. Well, Carolina is usually a vinegar base.
Carolina is more of a vinegar base. If you go to North Carolina, you could probably find 25 different types of barbecue. It is probably the most intriguing state to go to. You can drive like 10 miles and it will be very different. You know, from Lexington barbecue, Raleigh, Durham barbecue. If you go to the close to the coast, now close to the coast is very different. The coast and the central are going to be a straight vinegar with, probably lots of pepper and crushed red pepper and black pepper, but it's pretty much just straight vinegar. There is no tomato in it. Now, as you get to Western Carolina, the Charlotte area and closer to Tennessee, a lot of the people will put a little bit of tomato in. Now, it's not going to be a thick sauce like people are used to, but it's still a little bit of tomato to give it a balance. In fact, that is what my red hot vinegar sauce is. It's kind of a Western Carolina style because it does have some tomato in it.
Well, you have four sauces that are coming out that are called Boo and Henry's.
Yes.
What is the derivation?
You said it.
What's the source of that? Give me the story behind Boo and Henry's name.
Okay, Boo and Henry's. It's a catchy title. Boo is affectionately what my mother, a nickname that my mother, her name was Jean Thompson Varnell. And when I was in high school, one of my friends, Roger Larson, for some reason, I don't know, he just started calling her Boo. And it really stuck. And it stuck with me and my friends. And then when I got married and had kids, it stuck with my kids. It stuck with all the grandkids. And it's still, she might be called Boo, Grandma Boo, Mama Boo, any derivation of it. So, I mean, it was a nickname that she carried since the 70s. Now, Henry was my stepfather, who I affectionately, I mean, stepfather, father. I mean, he probably taught me more about life and about being a man than anybody in my life. He was a great role model and a really, really great man to my mother. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2015, and she passed away last year. When I started it out, of course, it was a tribute to both of them. And I didn't foresee her passing away, but during COVID, everything got thrown out.
Yeah, right.
We were trying to really start this right before COVID hit, and we were going to launch it in Southern California. But after COVID came, I made the big decision, the summer of 2020. I can't open in California because there was just a lot of negatives that were really coming up, and I just couldn't foresee opening in good conscience in California a restaurant. We pushed forward with the product line. We have the 4 sauces, which.
Why don't you tell us about the 4 sauces?
Okay, the 4 sauces. Now I have 2 true Memphis sauces. One is called the Memphis Smokin' Mild, which is a traditional Memphis sauce that I grew up on. If anybody really knows Memphis barbecue, it's kind of a combination of like Tops Barbecue, Leonard's Barbecue, the Rendezvous Barbecue. Those 3 are kind of like the go-tos of sauces that I grew up with. So it's kind of like a blend of all 3 of those sauces. Not too much smoke, not too much heat, but very well balanced sauce. I think everybody can enjoy that. Now the Memphis Smokin' Hot is my personal favorite because it does have a kick. I put some cayenne and a little bit of habanero powder in there. Now it's not going to blow you away, but I mean, it's got a really nice kick that, you can taste in the back of your throat. It's basically the same style of sauce as the mild, but we just kicked it up with the cayenne.
Kicked it up a notch, as Emerald would say. And the other 2?
The sweet mustard sauce. Now, this is a world champion sauce. We won in 1998, so I'm dating myself. We were cooking in the World Championship in Memphis, which is called Memphis in May World Barbecue Championship every year, still in May. And we won first place in mustard sauce, which had become a new category in the 90s. But we won the World Championship in that sauce. And, it's still the same recipe. There is a few different secrets that are in there. We do put orange marmalade in there. That's one of the secrets. Now, I cannot tell the other secrets, or I will have to kill you. But but that is a true South Carolina style sauce. Now, the other one, like we were talking about earlier, is a Western North Carolina sauce called Red Hot Vinegar. And when you asked me earlier about the influence of Asian, this is, there was a restaurant in San Francisco on Union Street, not Union Square, but on Union Street. Now,
Okay.
it has since closed. It was a Vietnamese restaurant. It was the best Vietnamese restaurant in San Francisco during the 90s and through the early 2000s till about 2010 it closed. But they had these short rib tips, these pork rib tips, and I was trying to figure out, how do they do this? How do they make them so good, and yet they're tender, yet they're crispy, and how do they do that? So Liz and I we were married at the time. We kept going into that place and we trying to find out what their secret was. So I tried to reinvent the sauce that they used. So the sauce ended up being a vinegar-based sauce. So even in the sauce, I do put rice wine vinegar. There are a few Asian ingredients in there. So it's not 100% total, North Carolina. So it's like Carolina meets Asia.
Right. Well, you mentioned Liz, who was on the show 2 weeks ago and does baking with herbs and does marketing. You met somebody else when you were working at the Checkers Hotel in LA. Who was that? Who did you work with?
Well,
other than meeting your wife there?
Well, I mean, I hope that I worked with him. The person that hired me at Checkers Hotel was Thomas Keller, who is now
French Laundry,
world renowned chef. I have never met I've never met a person that I believe understood food like he did. Unfortunately, we didn't work as long together as I would have liked. He left Checkers Hotel and went up to Napa and started his venture and started getting ready to launch the French Laundry. But I will tell you one thing about Thomas Keller. Whether you've worked with him or not, or whether you know him or not, and everybody, he had a reputation in the kitchen as being a really tough chef to work for. I mean, he grew up old school. He grew up learning under the tyrant chefs in Europe. And, it was a different time. I grew up at the very end of that, because the 80s and 90s, it were still those European chefs. It has calmed down a lot. But I will say that what you learn is the passion and still to this day, I can call him or get in touch with him and he will get a reservation for his restaurant. He always remembers me. He always remembers everybody that worked for him. And I will say worked for him because we were working for him. We were learning each and every day. Those experiences, you can't trade them in for anything.
Like numerous chefs. I mean, you went to LA, like numerous chefs. You worked in a number of restaurants, which you mentioned. And then came The Pig, the Memphis style barbecue restaurant. I know it had its run, but had great recognition from New York Times, Gourmet, Newsweek, Los Angeles Daily News, Chili Pepper Magazine recognized the best barbecue in LA, and LA is huge.
I think the two that we were most proud of was getting the Newsweek article, but I don't think we would have gotten the Newsweek article if we hadn't have gotten best barbecue in Los Angeles Magazine. Los Angeles Magazine at the time, now it has changed a little bit now, but at the time, this was 2000, and Los Angeles Magazine in the Southern California area was the Bible to food because their food section was unmatched, I think, anywhere in the country at the time. And they gave us, best barbecue in LA in 2000 and 2001, which was a big honor. And they didn't really go overboard reviewing barbecue because barbecue was still not mainstream. I kind of hope that our restaurant, The Pig, really kind of put barbecue in the forefront a little bit for a little while, even though it was only 7 years. But I think it really kind of ignited because, there are definitely a lot of offshoots after we opened and still even to this day that are kind of trying to really make it legitimate, because I don't think barbecue was ever really legitimate. Everybody would say, oh, well, yeah, you go down to certain areas and you get good barbecue. But I just like you were saying earlier, I don't believe that. it doesn't matter where you open. If you have a good product and you do it the right way,
People will find you.
yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to
And
think.
Newsweek, that was just a bonus. I mean,
Right. Uh, Present day, you're in Arizona now, and we talked about the Pig, the
Mhm.
restaurant that you're now looking. We were talking, folks, earlier before going on air, for just the right location to open in Scottsdale, right?
Exactly. In
Scottsdale, to
Scottsdale.
open a restaurant. But the notes will come up. Um, his website is launching on Friday, but you can find that on Daly's Facebook page and Daly's Boo and Henry's, and that's Boo hyphen and hyphen Henry's hyphen barbecue. You can find that on Facebook, and the links, come tomorrow, which is launch day. Uh, then you should be able to access this. There's a question that came in for some reason. It's breaking off part of the
Okay.
words here. Let's see. With so many varieties of barbecue already available, what is it about your line of products that offers something new or different? Why should anyone rush to purchase?
Great question. First and foremost, we use the highest quality products. Um, we use all natural ingredients. We don't use preservatives, and we use top quality spices. In fact, our co-packer is a spice company for our dry rub, and we use the dry rub in all four of the sauces. And they're hopefully, I mean, they're small batch, like small batch bourbons and small batch.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's just like when Stubbs, who I know everybody is familiar with Stubbs now, they started out that same way, small batch. Now McCormick owns them, so it's a different story. But
Right.
we're staying true to ourselves, small batch. I mean, a small batch for us now is it's like 500 gallons, which that doesn't sound small, but in the bigger scheme of things, that's tiny
A
because
small
the
batch.
big
Yeah.
conglomerates are making 50,000 gallons at a time.
Right. You've spent a lot of time studying barbecue, its roots, its history. What little known fact about barbecue would surprise people?
Wow, you're hitting that's a tough one. Little known fact. Well, I would say that I mean, growing up in Memphis, pork was barbecue. I mean,
Right.
now, and Texas brisket was barbecue. Of course, now, especially in the three, and I'll even say in Kansas City, because I mean,
You'll give them
Kansas,
that.
I have to give them credit. The Kansas City Barbecue Society, which I am a member of, so I can't badmouth them. But what the Kansas City Barbecue Society, I think, is probably promoted barbecue nationally and internationally more than any other organization. I wish I could say Memphis in May had promoted it as well as they do. They have a lot of backing and a lot. They really do a lot for barbecue. So really, in a way, I would say that don't for barbecue. Everybody wants to touch it and mess with it so much. So much of it is being patient and kind of taking a book from old Southerners that it's low and slow, and you've got to be patient. You've got to, whether you're going to be cracking open some beers or whatever, or whether you're putting it on and just letting it go. Sometimes some of the best barbecue that I've ever had. And in fact, I cooked some pork shoulders 2 days ago, and I've had thousands and thousands of pork shoulders. Well, I mean, and I was just leaving it alone. and I was doing some work and everything else like that. And every 2 hours I'd go out and make sure the fire was going the right way and baste it a little bit and turn the shoulders. But that little piece right under the knuckle, now that is gold. That is heaven. There's a piece on the pork shoulder. It's right under the knuckle. And if you pull that out, that is heaven.
That's the best bite.
That is like really, really. I don't want to get dirty here or anything, but it's like nothing you've ever tasted. And so to me, I think that is the best bite of barbecue you can have. I love brisket. Don't get me wrong, but that one little nugget right under the chine bone of the pork shoulder.
Okay, I have a statement here. It says, little known fact, the idea of grilling meats has originated in North America with indigenous Americans. So we have a comment there.
Well, I have to agree with that.
Okay, okay.
Now, excuse me.
I
was just going to add something to it, but the idea of grilling and barbecuing is different, though. When I moved out to California, I mean, they thought throwing hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill was barbecuing. But, I mean, generally barbecuing is indirect heats, cooking over indirect heat, low and slow, at about 250 to 275 degrees. Because when you get up to 300 or above, you're not really smoking.
Let me ask you this. Are you still doing barbecue competitions?
Haven't done a barbecue competition in quite a while. We've entertained the thought of going back to Memphis in May for one last hurrah. We haven't put it together yet, but
it's a possibility.
I have a feeling that once we get a restaurant up and running here in Scottsdale, I have a feeling that we're going to go as Boo and Henry's barbecue team. And, because my mother and stepfather still have so many people in Memphis that know them, and that, I mean, the one great thing about them is they did a lot of philanthropy, but they did a lot of anonymous philanthropy. And a lot of people never knew behind the scenes how many people that they helped. Yeah.
Right. If you wake up tomorrow, when you wake up tomorrow, what new talent would you like to have?
What new talent would I like to have? Oh, well, I'm a decent singer. I strangely enough, I wish I could be a good dancer.
Oh, okay.
I know it sounds strange, but the only dancing I could ever really pull off was disco, and I think that was just because anything went. I mean, I am dating myself but I did wear the leisure suits and back in the 70s, and I pulled it off. But that's something that
dancing.
I think, yeah,
dancing, yeah.
And
what piece of it?
I'm sorry. I have to learn. I have to learn some Southwest and some Texas style dancing, because we have a lot. It's very popular here in Arizona.
Right, right. What piece of advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Don't take yourself so seriously. Don't be obsessed with always being a perfectionist. I mean, I am a perfectionist that is just a natural trait of mine. And, I think that my younger self, my obsession to always be perfect, kind of got in the way a lot. I mean, I literally moved out to California to be the next Wolfgang Puck, and I really thought I would be. And there's no reason why you can't. I'm not saying don't dream, because I tell both of my daughters that all the time. Always, always dream and follow your dreams. And I totally believe that, especially nowadays. We need people that try to follow their dreams, because,
Right.
when people tell you you can't do something, I don't agree. I don't agree. I still think, if you set your mind to it, you can do anything you want to. But don't be so hard on yourself to where it obsesses you and that's all that you think about 24/7. Enjoy life.
Right. Epic culinary fail.
Wow, you're getting some good ones here. Epic culinary fail. Well, I mean, it wasn't a total failure, but I was a partner in a restaurant in the late 90s. It's called Victor Hod's. It's long been gone. Actually, Liz and I were, I was the executive chef and
She was pastry.
a partner, and she was a pastry chef, called New American Cuisine. It was in West Hollywood. I mean, it was hopping. It was happening. It was, it came, it came really, really hot. But, I was young and ego was driving me and all this. And I could totally see me, I could see me, oh, I'm going to be on all the news shows. I'm going to be on this. And that was what was driving me. And that's why my answer to the last question was so prevalent, is that's what was driving me. It wasn't the love for being the best at my trade and my craft. It was who I was. And so I thought that I was the whole reason everybody was going to come. And, we had a good run, but there was lots of behind the stuff things that were not done right. We were not funded right. And, after 6 months, we fell on our face. And we had to really, really struggle to stay open. And unfortunately, it only lasted about 13 months.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
But
What didn't
that's
I
an experience.
What didn't I ask you that I should have?
Well, God, I don't know.
That's okay. I asked you all the necessary questions.
You're very good. You
Well,
hit me with
thank you.
tough
Thank
ones.
you. After 98 episodes, I should be getting good at this, right?
Well, I still do think that after 100, that they should give you a celebration or something.
I think you're right.
Rolex watch.
No. No more watches. And there's a long story with that. My husband collected everything. May he rest in peace. And I sold off the really valuable ones. I was still left with 40 watches. I just took them to an
40
auction
watches.
house. 40 watches. Don't need a watch. But thank you anyhow. Daly, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Much success with Boo and Henry's barbecue sauces, everyone. And you will see links to get in touch with Daly there. And Daly, much success. I'm going to go on with a couple in there.
We are going to have a blog on the website. The website is fabulous. The lady that put it together did an incredible job. So we are launching that tomorrow. So is that Boo and Henry's barbecue? Give me the name right now. The website is booandhenrysbarbecue.com. If you want information, you can type in info at booandhenrysbbq.com. Info at booandhenrysbbq.com.
Thank you so much. And Jen will catch up with you later. And here we go. We got a couple announcements. We had fun speaking to Daly and probably went a little long, but I don't want you to miss out for next week's show. Jerry Dawes, he's an authority on Spain, the foods, wines, culture, travel, a true bon vivant and author of his latest book, Sunset in a Glass, Adventures of a Food and Wine Road Warrior. He is recipient of the prestigious Spanish National Gastronomy Prize. The book's foreword is by Jose Andres. It should be very, very interesting. You don't want to miss it. I thank you for joining the Food Enthusiast and continue to share our show links with friends and family. It helps us to grow. I hear spring is on the way, so have faith. Until next week, may your plates always, always remain full.